How y'all doing?
Good.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. That's good. That's two of us. I feel bad. There's a lot of Jews that want to watch. Okay, so here's the story. You ready for a story?
Yes. Always.
So the story goes like this. 1 second, I'm going to the internet. There was a lawyer in. I mentioned this by the kids. I don't know if anyone heard about it. There was a lawyer in South Carolina, North Carolina, who loved smoking cigars. And he had some of the most expensive cigars you can get, really expensive cigars. He insured them. $10,000 to insure 24 cigars. Yeah, 24 cigars, $10,000. So he has insurance on his 24 cigars. And then he decides to enjoy his cigars. And he smokes his 24 cigars and then files an insurance claim. That his cigars had been burnt. They had been burnt. And being a lawyer, he was able to prove in the insurance that he had purchased, it didn't specify what kind of fire it was. He has fire coverage in his insurance, and these particular items that he had insured were destroyed in fire, were no longer usable, as resellable, etc. So they should be covered under fire insurance. Went to the court. And the court looked at the legal language of the document. He said, sure enough, the lawyer is technically right. Yes, it's a frivolous court case. If you want to go to a jury, you could. But legally, he's within the bounds of his contract to demand coverage for the cigars that were destroyed in fire. There's no limit on what kind of fire the insurance covers. So the insurance company said, we're not going to go spend all this money on lawyers and all that, to go to court for $10,000. They paid the $10,000 claim. He deposited the check. As soon as he deposited the check, they had him arrested first for 24 counts of arson on insurance. Then they charged him with 24 counts of insurance fraud for depositing the check for insured property that he had caused damage to. And he ended up spending 24 months in jail for 24 counts of arson and paid a $24,000 fine for the 24 acts of insurance fraud.
This is a true story.
I think so. It's a good story.
It is.
It's a good story. I read it. It was on the internet. It must be true, right? If it's on the internet, it must be true. Nothing fake will be on the internet, so it must be true. But I share this story. First of all, this is a great story. I love it. It's fascinating. Yeah. But secondly, the second reason why I share this story is because tonight we're going to talk about the liability that we sometimes have when we take responsibility for someone else's belongings. And to what extent do we need to reimburse or insure? What's the level of insurance we provide when we take responsibility for that which belongs to somebody else? Okay? So this week's Torah reading, the Parsha of Mishpatim, has a whole number of laws that of civil laws, many civil laws, all kinds of civil laws. And amongst the many civil laws are the laws of guardians and borrowers, and what their level of liability is to reimburse when something has been lost from them. Okay, so let's share the screen. And for those who are sitting here in person, it's going to be the text you have in front of you from this week's chapter, this week's parsha, verse number 9. This is talking about a paid guardian. Rashi explains on other verses there's an unpaid guardian. You know what? Before I read it, you know what? Let's stop sharing. Let me first explain it outside. I know, and then we'll read it inside. Let me give you the breakdown. And I'm going to make this as simple as possible, even though it might sound a drop complicated. Trust me that we're making this simple. We can make it much more complicated if we want to. Much more. You have three general kinds of guardianship. The Mishnah describes 4, but I'm making it simple. We're going to discuss 3. The 3 general categories. And the Mishnah even says there's 4, which is really 3, so let's just do 3. You have an unpaid guardian. So basically, Sidel comes to Dvorah, says, Dvorah, could you watch my dog? Okay? So she's an unpaid guardian. She's not getting paid for watching the dog. I just say, Barbara, we don't get sisters involved. I don't put sisters against each other. So you're watching her dog, and a week later, she comes back, and the dog is not here. What's your level of liability that you're responsible to reimburse that which you lost? So it depends. An unpaid guardian has very limited liability. You know why? Because they weren't being paid. So because they weren't really getting anything out of it, their level of liability is also less intense. Their level is less than it would normally be. Okay. So if they were negligent, if Dvorah was negligent, she left the front door open and the dog ran away, even though you weren't paid for it, since you were negligent, you have to pay back. However, let's say the dog was stolen from you. There was a thief, there was a robbery, there was some kind of accident that happened. Even though it's not your fault, you were negligent, you are obligated to pay. Sorry, you're not obligated to pay. You're not obligated to pay. However, if you be a paid guardian, if Sidel will be paying Dvorah to watch her dog, then even in the case where there was a robbery, a theft, an accident of some sort, a car ran it over, something that happened, the car ran it over, in that case, what?
She's responsible.
A paid guardian, Dvorah, since Sidel is paying for the guardianship, so you're no longer just a friend doing a favor. Now you're already a hired dog sitter. In that case, you have to pay. However, even then, you would not have to pay if a hurricane came. Now today we're talking about earthquakes, right? There'd be an earthquake, and an earthquake came. A freak of nature, something that's totally unforeseeable, happened. In that case, even though you're being paid for it, earthquake came. It's not your fault. We don't hold it against you. Okay. Yeah.
Is that only in extreme acts? Like, what if the dog, I don't know,
Died.
If the dog scratched a hole and we had a dog who ate the door to get out of the room. If the dog ate the door, and opened the door and left.
So the dog opened the door on his own left.
Right.
A paid guardian. So an
Right.
unpaid. So I'm going to use Kareen's example. If the dog somehow managed to open the door by itself, again, assuming that the door was closed, or the dog somehow broke the whatever, the door wasn't left open, then if it was an unpaid guardian, you wouldn't have to pay anything. The guardian closed the door. A paid guardian would have to pay. No. An unpaid guardian would not have to pay back liability for the dog. That's what I said, right? I think so. A paid guardian would have liability and have to pay back, even though the dog opened the door on their own, but they would have liability.
Okay.
Got it?
So even though they're not at fault, unless it's an act of Hashem.
Unless it's an act of Hashem, like an earthquake or a hurricane comes through Florida, blows out the house, and the dog ran through the open door because it was blown out, then you'd be exempt. Yeah.
I would think also you pretty much have to prove that the dog actually ate the door.
Okay, excellent. You have to bring proof. Okay, yes, you have to bring witnesses. We're going to read the verse in a second. Excellent. So you would have to prove it correct. The third category we're going to talk about now is the category of people that are borrowers. Borrower. A borrower is not paying. That's a renter. A renter, I'm deliberately avoiding because the renter is a debate. If a renter is like a unpaid guardian or a paid guardian, what category they fall into. It's not mentioned in our verses. It's not relevant for tonight's discussion. It just would make a whole new level of complication that I'm going to leave out of the discussion for tonight. The other category of owner of responsibility is a borrower. Because basically when you rent something, so you're paying for the right to have the pleasure, so now your liability to return the object as you got it, is that a favor? Is that considered you're paying for it? You're being paid for it because you got to use the item? But we're not going to go there now. So you have the borrower. The borrower is just getting benefit from the item, right? In that case, the borrower has complete liability to pay back even if there be an earthquake. You take responsibility. When you borrow something from your friend, you are responsible to return that object no matter what. Even if an act of God happens, a completely unforeseeable, earthquake comes, you got to still pay back because that's your responsibility. You took it, you were borrowing it, you got to bring it back. The only exception will be if the owner was with you when the earthquake happened. So in the case when the earthquake happened, or if, let's say, you died a natural death or something which was completely beyond your control, if the owner was there working with you, you were, let's say, walking the dog, said, let me borrow your dog, but you're walking together, but you're holding the leash, and, since the owner is with you, in that case, you would be exempt. Otherwise, it makes no difference how the animal died or what happened, you'd be liable. Are those three categories clear? Simple, right? Okay. Now, always simple. That's our job, to think how to make it simple. So now we're going to read inside from this week's Parsha, verse number 9. If a man gives his neighbor a donkey, a bull, a lamb, or any animal for safekeeping, and it dies, breaks a limb, or is captured, and no one sees. Okay? So basically, in this case, there's no negligence. Nothing where he left the door open. All these cases, it died, it fell, it was stolen, it was captured. These are not cases of negligence. So then, the oath of the Lord shall be between the two of them, provided that he did not lay his hand upon his neighbor's property, and its owner shall accept it, and he shall not pay.
What does it mean anyway?
What?
One sees, no one sees.
There's no witnesses. As Gail said before, there's no witnesses. No one saw what happened. So the owner says, you were negligent. And he says, well, it wasn't me. It was something happened totally out of my control. Okay? So in that case, he makes an oath. So the paid guardian, he makes an oath that describing what happened, that he didn't take any personal benefit from that which he was protecting. It wasn't his own personal benefit. And then he's exempt from pay. However, if it is stolen from him, and this is the case of something he couldn't expect, but if it is stolen from him, he shall pay its owner. Because since he's a paid guardian, even though it's not his fault that it was stolen, he didn't, was negligence, he has obligation to pay back for the theft. Verse 12, if it is torn apart, he shall bring witnesses for it. For the torn one, he shall not pay. So here is the case where was an animal came and attacked this other animal. If he can bring proof that it happened the way, again, he wasn't negligent, he shall not pay. This is however, if a person borrows from an animal from his neighbor and it breaks a limb or dies, if its owner is not with him, he shall surely pay. If its owner is with him, he shall not pay, for it is a hired animal. Okay, we got to forget the hired animal part. Let's just focus on these three levels. Basically, we have three levels over here. We have the unpaid guardian who only is obligated if there's negligence. Not mentioned explicitly in the Torah. That's what Rashi explains as the first level. The second guy is a guy that was paid if it was an act of nature, an act of God. The animal died, a natural death. Something happened beyond his control. It wasn't his fault in any way, shape, or form that he couldn't have any control over. He makes an oath, he's exempted. However, if it was stolen, something happened while under his watch, even though he didn't act negligently, he's liable to pay. If he's a borrower, no matter what happens, he has to pay back. Yes.
In 11, is the person being paid?
Yes, I believe that it's all talking about a paid guardian.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Now, it's very simple in logic. The more benefit you get from having the object in your property, the higher your liability is. That's all we need to know for tonight's class.
Why is this promotion comes after?
That's a great question, but it's not relevant for tonight's discussion.
Doesn't make sense.
It does make sense, but it's not for tonight's discussion. So now, let us get straight. Yeah, question.
What is the I don't understand the meaning over here on the verse 9 or the third line, or is capture? Is not the same as stolen? Capture? I mean, what does
Yes.
Capture?
Capture. Okay.
No. Capture would mean that armed robbers came, or the army came. The king came and took the against your will.
Oh, okay.
That's different than a theft.
Okay, that's
A king coming and taking it, whatever, is like an earthquake coming. What are you going to do?
Okay.
Right?
Okay, it's capture. Okay, so that's different from stolen.
Okay, so now let's go straight to the meat of the Bible. Let's go straight to the meat here. I want to talk about the spirit. I don't want to give a technical class on different levels of guardianship. I want to talk about the spiritual message for us. When we learn these laws, like any set of laws, it was just technical laws. And if you be a yeshiva student, it'd be fascinating. You go deep into why the different levels. Why is stolen this level, and why is if the king took it that level? Let's talk spiritual. There's a beautiful, pretty classic, well-known, famous teaching of the Shalah. The Shalah is the Yitzchak Levi Horowitz. I don't have any papers here. He was in the 16th century Torah scholar and the Kabbalist, a very famous book. He wrote a commentary on the Torah called Shnei Luchos Habris. That's what it's called. Shnei Luchos Habris, the two tablets. And that's where you got the name Shalah from the Shnei Luchos Habris. So he brings a beautiful explanation of the different categories of ownership, of liability. The Rebbe talks about at great length, describing these levels of ownership that a person takes, and therefore the level of liability that they have. Okay? So I want to introduce this explanation that I'm going to explain now with a story, a very famous story. The story told about the Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir, one of the rabbis of the Talmud, had a wife called Bruria. Okay? One day, it was a Shabbos afternoon. Rabbi Meir's sons came home from the yeshiva Shabbos afternoon. He was in yeshiva teaching, and the two sons passed away. Both of his sons passed away one afternoon. You heard the story? It's a very, very famous, it's a powerful story. Bruria was the wife of Rabbi Meir. And one Shabbos afternoon, her two sons came home, and they both passed away. At home, on Shabbos. He was teaching in the yeshiva, her husband was teaching in the yeshiva. It was Shabbos afternoon. He was giving a lecture in the Beis Medrash. Her two sons came home, they both died. So she put them into the room. She covered them with a blanket. She laid them on the beds, and she sat to wait for her husband to come home. Her husband comes home after Shabbat is over to make Havdalah for his wife, and he says to his wife, "Where are the boys? Where is I don't know the name. Doesn't say the name. Where are my sons?" So she says to him, "Make Havdalah, and they're going to be here later." So he makes Havdalah. He then wants to know again what that is. She said, "Let's eat first." So he eats the Malacha Malka, the meal after Shabbos. She brings him food, he eats, and after he's getting very curious, "Where are the boys?" So she says to him, "Before, I have a question. Someone came to ask me earlier, I'm asking for a friend." She says to him while he's eating the food, "I have a question that a friend asked." Then not a friend. A while ago, a man came and deposited something very, very precious into my possession. Deposited something very precious into my possession. And now he came to take it back, but I don't want to give it back to him. I love what he entrusted in my possession. I don't want to give it back to him. What's the law? So Rabbi Meir turns to his wife and says, "The law is obvious. The man entrusted these items into your possession. They're just a temporary meantime. Now that he wants them back, you have to return them." So she says, "That's the case." She takes him by the hand, and she takes him to the room where two boys were lying dead on the bed. And she says, "God gave us a very, very precious gift to watch over for a short period of time. And now God has come to take back that which he gave us to watch." Very strong. And
Is this a
when
true story?
true story, it's in the Medrash.
It's like that story with, I think Rabbi Friedman goes on that trip.
Yeah. I decided to add the story here because I think that this story encapsulates, and then he says, "Hashem nasan, Hashem lokach." We say by a funeral, God gives and God takes. Yehi Shem Hashem Averech Ma'at Adel. May the name of God be blessed forever and ever. That the way she framed the loss of the children wasn't that we lost our children, but that God gave us a gift to watch for a while. It wasn't like a gift; it was a guardianship. God entrusted us with a very, very precious object. The children of God, and now God has decided to take them back. And although it's painful, although we don't want to let go of it, we want to keep it forever. We have no choice. That's the law that you have to return it back. So all of us, we have a body, and then God gives us a soul. Every single morning we wake up, and what's the first thing we say? Modani lefanecha. I give thanks before you, Melech Chai, living King, that you have returned my soul back to me. And at the end of the day, God takes the soul back to heaven. And really, God does not need to give us new life the next morning. We take it for granted because, thank God, it's happened 365 times, 40, 50, 60, whatever years. No one is over 60, right? So everybody, I'm not good at math, tens of thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of times maybe, that tens of thousands of times that God has returned our soul to us every single morning. So we take it for granted. But every single morning, really every night, if you want, I can say it that way. Every night, what's the last words we say before we go to sleep? Biyadcha afkid ruchi. Into your hands I entrust my spirit, redeem your God of truth. So at night we go to sleep, we're returning our object, our guardianship, that which God has given to us on loan, we return to God. And then in the morning, we get it back from God. And God says, you know what? I want to entrust you with this object one more day. And so the body that us, in this context, is our bodies. And God is giving our body, giving us an unbelievable loan, an unbelievable gift, an unbelievable responsibility, the soul that he puts inside us to give us life, to give us the ability to function, to exist, be productive, beautiful human beings, making the world a better place. Now, how do we view our relationship with this object, this soul, this life that God gives us? Different people have different ways, different perspectives on how they view the soul that God gives them. So God gave us a soul. And in fact, when God gave us a soul, he gave it to us for a reason. In fact, when God put Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, he says he put him in the garden, the old Shamar, to work in the garden. But not everyone is willing to accept that. And there are some people who think that their life in this world is different. And there's three primary categories, three primary perspectives of how people look at the soul God gave them. I'll start on the top extreme, the holiest extreme, the unpaid guardian. There are some people who recognize that they are here because God gave them a mission, right? As I said, God put us in the garden, la'avda ol shamra, to work it, to God, and they recognize that. They appreciate that. What are they expecting in return for doing God's work? Nothing. It's not about them. They're not here for their own benefit. They're here to do the will of God. There's a very famous, beautiful mission on ethics of our Father that says, don't be like servants who serve their master, almanas, lekabo pras, in order to receive reward. Rather be like servants who serve their master, shaloi almanas, not in order to receive reward. The ultimate level of holiness, the ultimate level of piety and of righteousness is someone who serves God for no other reason than I love God, I am dedicated to serving God, my existence is for the sake of serving God. I don't exist. I was not created except to serve my Creator. And I can go on the different quotes from the teachings of our sages describing this worldview, this mindset of I am here for one reason, to serve God. What do I get in return? Nothing. I'm an unpaid guardian. God decided this morning to entrust me with a soul. Thank you, Hashem, for giving me the opportunity to be your guardian. I hope to do a good job and return it back to the end of the day as perfect and as unblemished as when I got it in the morning. That's one perspective. Then you have a second perspective. The second perspective is that of the the paid guardian. The paid guardian. Now, the paid guardian also understands that he is a guardian here to serve God, here to protect the soul that God has given him. The difference is he's expecting something in return. So he makes a deal with God. God, I'm willing to serve you. I'm willing to do what you want. I'm willing to be a good person. I'm willing to go to synagogue. I'm willing to give charity. But I'm expecting that you should take care of me. Either I'm expecting spiritual reward, I'm expecting reward, I'm expecting nachas, and then people get upset. Why would God do this to me? I'm a good guy. I get my end of my own imagined deal with God. I get my end of the deal. Why is God not keeping his end of the deal? And in this world perspective, this world view, it's a legitimate argument. Because if you're a paid guardian, you expect to get paid for your work. So fine, God, we're in this together. You gave me life. I have the body. You gave me the soul. I shall use my life to be a good Jew, to be a good human being, to help others, to be kind to others. All I expect in return, God, is be kind to me. Give me, make my life easy. Don't give me too much stress at work. Give me nachas for my kids. That's, give me Gan Eden. If you're more of a spiritually oriented person, I want spiritual bliss. But the point is, it's a mindset of I'm here to serve God, but I'm expecting something in return. It's a lower level of serving God. You're allowed to, yes, you're serving God. You should serve God. The question was, are you allowed to serve God for personal benefit? You start at the bottom and you work your way up. You start serving God, shaloi lishma, not for the right reasons eventually. And there's so many stories, by the way, of people that were offered for a reward. There's a famous story about the with a little bit of esrog, with the guy that had a little bit of esrog in the Baal Shem, it was the Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. He said, I'll give my Gan Eden, half of my Gan Eden, to whoever will give us a little bit of esrog. Other stories also with a story with a maid that was accused of stealing. Famous story, it's not right now. And he said, whoever will pay the money to get this woman off the charges against her, I'll give them half of my Gan Eden. If you think about it, why would a person give away their Gan Eden to help somebody else? Gan Eden is a reward for doing a mitzvah, so why would you give away Gan Eden to get a mitzvah? To someone like Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev, Gan Eden is not important. If God wants to give me Gan Eden, that's fine. If I'm an unpaid guardian, the Dora watches your dog for a week and you want to give her a gift afterwards and say, thank you for watching my dog while we were in Israel. We're going to Israel too. Okay, so Barbara, while we're in Israel, you watch my dog. Okay, it's nice to give her a gift. So God, you want to give me Gan Eden? That's very nice of you. But as far as Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev is concerned, I'm here to serve God, And the other Jew says, I'll serve God if you give me Gan Eden. You give me a reward, I'll give the charity. No Gan Eden, no charity.
So what does Gan Eden stand?
Good question. Category number 3. What's the third perspective? The borrower. What's the perspective of the borrower? What is a borrower? Yeah, the borrower is the exact opposite. The borrower is not working for you. A guardian is working for the person who the item belongs to. Either they're getting paid for it, not getting paid for it, but that's who they're working for. So I am here to guard your item. A borrower is the opposite extreme. A borrower says, I want benefit. What did you get for nothing? Maybe I'll say thank you, maybe not. Usually you lend money, you only get tzaras afterwards, right? But so a borrower is the opposite end of the extreme, and the borrower is someone who's getting for his own benefit. To the borrower, he's living life for his own benefit, for his own self-fulfillment, for his own self-pleasure, his own self-aggrandizement. He's not here to serve God. Now he understands that God is what gives him a soul. He understands he's alive because God gave him life. He recognizes that fact, so he recognizes it. But he doesn't feel like he owes anything. God lent me my soul. Good. God was very nice. He lent my soul. Thank you. When I borrow something from you, am I indebted to you? Do I have to do something for you? No. I don't have to use the thing you gave me now to give you back something in return. I borrowed it. I used it how I wanted to use it. When I'm done, I'll return it to you. So I recognize that God gave me life. Thank you, God. Moda'ani. Now let me go enjoy my day. Let me go use the soul, the life that God gave me for how I want to enjoy it. That's what a borrower is allowed to do, right? Borrowers are allowed to take their items and do it for their benefit. What? I'm talking about views of life. It's not about religious or unreligious. It's about a view of life. That certain people, they could be religious, they could not be. The point is, they look at their life as there for their own benefit. God gave me a soul, and now life is here for me to enjoy. We all got that part, right? How does God look at us? So it says, which means the way man looks at another, the way a face reflects water, so to a heart to the heart, and therefore so too it is with man to God, that the way we look at God is how God looks at us. Meaning, let me say simply, God reflects like a mirror. The way we look at God is the way God reciprocates the relationship. The way we interact with God. The way we engage with God, God says, okay, I'll reciprocate. I will allow you to define the relationship, and I will engage, correspondingly. So that's what it means that Hashem is your shadow. There's a verse we say in Tehillim, Hashem tzilcha, God is your shadow. The Moshe Tov explains that like a shadow, how does a shadow move? However you move. If you lift your arm up, the shadow goes up. If you put your arm down, the shadow goes down. Okay. So we have the ability to choose the level of relationship we have with God. Based on the way we feel and think and the way we act, we can determine if our relationship, if our contract, so to say, with God is that of an unpaid guardian who selflessly serves God for the sake of serving God, that of a paid guard is willing to serve God for return, or the selfish borrower just wants to take from God but doesn't feel like they owe anything in return. And depending on how we engage with God is the level of liability God holds against us. Understand? So what happens at the end of the day? You would give your soul back to God. Has the soul gotten blemished during the day? Has the soul seen negative things? Has it maybe engaged in some lashon hara? Has it talked bad about someone? Has it had a moment of ego, of pride, of pleasure? Maybe it looked at something inappropriate. Maybe it ate something. So God judges us. He holds us liable how we view ourselves. If we're an unpaid guardian, we're here to serve God. So unless we were deliberately negligent and we left the door open, we're not held liable for what happened to us during the day. God is very forgiving. If we are here to serve God, God takes care of us. God forgives us. God understands. You tried, okay, so something happened, it got stolen, or someone came and, what's a thief? They came and they invaded you in the middle of the night. Okay, so you got invaded and God forgives. However, if we view ourselves like paid guardians, where we expect something in return, so God says, okay, you're expecting in return, I'm going to hold you to a higher standard. You want to be that way? You're holding me to a standard of paying you for your work. I'm going to hold you to a standard that if it's stolen, if it's missing, I expect higher repayment. If not, you have to swear, etc. So the level of liability or vulnerability that a paid guardian has is much more. He's expecting in return, so God is more demanding in return. The borrower, he's liable all the way. God doesn't look over so quickly the person who lives a selfish life. And God says, okay, it's yours. You borrowed it. You get to take pleasure from it. But guess what? I'm expecting in return, I get the soul back pristine. You have to return the item you borrowed the way you borrowed it. Can't borrow my soul and spend the whole day binge watching Netflix and give me back a soul that's full of shtus. You know what shtus means? That's not fair. I gave you a holy soul. What are you going to give back to me? Full of garbage, rein and stuck in you, whatever politics or whatever. That's not what I gave you a soul for. To spend 8 hours binge watching, I don't know what it was on Netflix now. That's what you got a soul for. So God gets upset. God demands of us how we utilize that which is ours. All right. You're feeling guilty, huh?
You don't know how it is.
That's why you have to be an unpaid. If you look at yourself like an unpaid guardian, you're much safer. There is a way out though for the borrower. God puts an escape clause in for the borrower. God is such a loving God. God is such a kind, compassionate, caring God that God says, even though technically, contractually, legally, I'm entitled to demand full compensation, there's one way out for the borrower. What do we read in the text? What's the one way that the borrower does not have to pay back if something happens to the animal? They're walking the animal dies?
Tshuva.
What does it say? Go look in the text. You have the text in front of you.
Oh, if God is with
If the owner is walking with you. If you borrow the ox to go plow your field, I'm using the biblical example. Or if you borrow the dog to go walking and you want the comfort of walking a dog, and the owner is not in town, or whatever, not with you, it doesn't make a difference what happened. If lightning came out of the sky and struck the dog, you got to pay back the value of the dog. But if the owner was walking with you, even though you're holding the leash, and you're pretending like it's your dog, since the owner was with you, what does the verse say? If the owner is with you, you don't need to pay back. If the owner is with you, you're exempt. As long as you recognize that the owner of the property, the owner of my soul is with me, and you connect yourself to God, and even when you mess up, even when you're negligent or there's an accident, whatever it is, even when you've messed up, you just destroyed the holy, precious item that God gave you, your soul, and you allowed that holy soul to be in the garbage. If you can find a way to feel connected to God, which is what tshuva is, an act of connection, when you connect to God, you become exempt.
You what?
You become exempt. It's beautiful. It's an escape clause here. There's an escape clause. Those are my words. The escape clause. Now, I mean, there's a difference in a borrower and a guardian. A guardian recognizes the soul is God's, and I have to do the best I can to protect it. The borrower thinks I can do whatever I want with it as long as I return it back the way I got it. But even in that case where you're so selfish and you take it for your own benefit, as long as you're able to be cognizant of the fact that God is present with me, Ba'alav Ima, what are the Hebrew words of the text? As long as Ba'alav Imo, as long as the owner is God, the owner of the universe, the master of the universe, the Balabayas, you know what Balabayas means? The owner of the house is here, then you're exempt, God is with you, and you can get away with it. Understand? Now you get away with it, but you have, God forgives you, and God says, it's not as if I was with him, so I'm not going to hold him liable. Okay? Now, what's the deal over here? What's the lesson for us? So we have three different perspectives on life. We have the unpaid guardian who's here to serve God exclusively for no expectation of return. We have a paid guardian serving God, waiting for a paycheck, waiting for a pay raise, an achas, whatever, he's health, whatever he's waiting for, whatever conditions he made with God, I'll do this if you do this for me. And then we have the borrower who just wants to enjoy life, just wants to take benefit for himself. He feels he owes God nothing in return. Which is the greatest of the three? Obviously, the unpaid guardian. Which one are we?
The borrower.
Don't be so harsh on yourself. It depends. There's different points in our life where we behave in different ways. About all of these different categories, because there's times that we find ourselves in all of these categories. And there's times that we're like a renter. But I'll say this part because I can say it without making it confusing. The renter also thinks God is giving this all for me, but I'll pay back something. I'll go to shul for an hour. I'll pay my religious dues. I'll go to Yom Kippur, so I'm still a good Jew, and I'm exempt with that. But the point is, we all have those levels. We all have moments of borrower syndrome, of me. It's for my benefit. I don't owe you anything. You gave me life. That was nice of you, but now it's mine. I can do with it as I please. And we all have moments on the opposite extreme of the coin, on the opposite end of the spectrum, where we serve God totally selflessly for no expectation of anything in return, not even because just because this is the right thing to do, and no one will ever know, no one will ever see. I'm not doing it for any kind of reward, not even a spiritual reward. I'm doing it just because I know this is the right thing to do. It's tough to always live like that, but I would venture to say that all of us, at least those of us sitting in this room, all of us in this room, I'm looking around the room, you're all included. Whoever's watching me on Facebook, I don't know, so I'm sure I include you too. Every one of us, including those that are watching, there are times to do things purely for the sake of God. So going to a class tonight, there's some, you're getting benefit out of it, you're doing the right thing, but there's some benefit. But we all do things where we expect no benefit. And enjoy it. There won't be the beginning, there won't be a good story at the end. We do things just because we know that's what God wants us to do. Right? We've all done that. Everyone sitting here, I'm pretty sure has done that. And everyone watching online, I'm pretty sure you've done that. So there's times in our life that we're selfish. There's times in our life that we act like borrowers. And we take this unbelievably valuable gift that God gives us, this unbelievably valuable object, this item, and we kind of trash it, we kind of waste it. And there's times that we're paid guardians, and we serve God faithfully, not as borrowers, but as guardians who work for God, but we demand in return from God, which is okay. And then there's times we don't ask for anything. It's not about us at all. It's only about God. We got to work that. So I want to tell you now an amazing story. An amazing story. It's a true story. And this story is the third level, the highest level, the unpaid guardian. And I share this story. One of the reasons why we share Hasidic stories of Tzaddikim, is that even though we're not going to always be like this, but it's important to know that there's time, like it's an ideal that we can strive to reach. I'm telling you an amazing story. Do you know who was the first person to tell the story? The first person to tell the story was a holy man called the Adam Baal Shem. The Adam Baal Shem was the teacher of the Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. Okay? The beginning of Hasidus. And I've shared this story before, but not recently, and it's a very, very powerful story. This is the ideal. And the Adam Baal Shem, who was a great, holy mystical Kabbalist, he told the Baal Shem Tov this story to tell the Baal Shem Tov who his soul was reincarnated for. So the story I'm going to tell you now is the story of the person who contained the soul of the Baal Shem Tov before the Baal Shem Tov. So this is a holy story, a crazy story. In the year 1573, that's the year the story took place, in the city of Tzfat, there was a humble, simple, unlearned Jew who, a very simple Jew, who one day is sitting, he didn't know how to study Torah, didn't know how to pray. I mean, he knew the basics, he knew how to go to shul, put on tefillin, but he was not a scholar, but a Jew that loved God. Jew that loved God. One evening, this Jew is sitting at home at night, whatever's going on, and all of a sudden he hears a knock on the door. A knock on the door. And he opens the door, and who does he see standing there? Eliyahu HaNavi. Eliyahu HaNavi. That's what he said. Who's there? The guy said Eliyahu HaNavi. Opens the door. Can you imagine? He was up at night. Reading here said he was saying Tikka Chatzais. He was praying at night. Didn't know how to learn. He was praying. And Eliyahu HaNavi comes. And Eliyahu HaNavi looks at this simple man. And Eliyahu HaNavi, Elijah the prophet, was a little shocked. And he says to this man, I've been sent from heaven to divulge to you some of the greatest secrets of the Torah. I've been sent by heaven to come be your teacher, to come teach you some secrets of the Torah I have to tell you. But I'm looking at you, you look like a simple person. Tell me, what did you do on your bar mitzvah that made your reward in heaven so great that it was decided in heaven to send me down from heaven, because we all know he would do these missions, come down to earth, he was in the body, to come teach you. So the man says to Eliyahu HaNavi as follows. You ready to hear this? I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. What I did on my bar mitzvah was between me and God. You don't deserve to know. It's not your business. I didn't do it for reward. I didn't do it to show off to my friends. I didn't do it to show off to Eliyahu HaNavi. As a secret, I'm not telling you. So Eliyahu HaNavi got really curious. Really curious. So he says to this guy, if you're not going to tell me what you did on your bar mitzvah to merit me coming from heaven in order to teach you, I'm not going to teach you. You know what he says? Don't teach me. I'm not willing to give up my mitzvah that I did for God, that I didn't tell anyone in the whole world. No one knows what I did on my bar mitzvah. Only God knows. Obviously in heaven they don't know either, because you don't know. Right? The angels don't know, or else you wouldn't be asking me. I am not willing to give up that mitzvah I did for God in order to earn your favor and your grace that you'll teach me the secrets of the Torah. Can you imagine? So Eliyahu HaNavi, he go back on his word now. He's not going to teach him. He begged him, he said, please, teach me, tell me what you did so I want to teach you. I was sent on a mission to teach you. I have to teach you. Tell me what you did. And the more he begged, Eliyahu HaNavi refused to teach him. He refused to tell this man what he had done on his bar mitzvah day. So eventually Eliyahu HaNavi went back to heaven. He left without telling any of the secrets of the Torah to this man. Secrets of the universe. Imagine Elijah the prophet comes to you tonight. Knocks on you and says, Marsha, I want to teach you secrets of the universe. You do anything. It's like,
Okay.
absolutely. Come, let's learn. So I'm not telling you what I did on my bar mitzvah. It was between me and God. I don't want to give it away. When Eliyahu HaNavi came back to heaven, there was a huge uproar in the heavens, a huge commotion. Huge commotion. God himself, and this man is so holy. Huge commotion. And eventually, the heavenly court, the Beis Shamayla, made a ruling that because this person had been so loyal and so dedicated to Hashem, he was not willing to give away his secret, his mitzvah to God, that he wouldn't say what he did. The heavenly court ruled, after the whole commotion, that Eliyahu has to go back down to earth and to teach this man the secrets of the Torah, even without finding out what he did to deserve that kind of honor, having Eliyahu HaNavi as his teacher. So Eliyahu HaNavi comes back down to the earth, and Eliyahu HaNavi starts to teach him. And very quickly, the man that used to be a very, very simple, uneducated, holy person, obviously, became a tremendous scholar who knew the greatest secrets of the Torah. But guess what? You can already guess. He never told anyone that he become his secret. If he wouldn't tell Eliyahu HaNavi that what he did as bar mitzvah, he told his friends in the shul, hey guys, I've been saying with Eliyahu Navi lately, you want to hear some really cool stuff that I learned? He kept it all to himself. It was private between him and God and Eliyahu Navi now. And so nobody in the city of Tzfat knew that this simple man was actually studying Torah with Eliyahu Navi.
Is this mean selfishness?
Maybe the selfish. Well, listen, good question. And eventually came the time. He was humble. In his mind, he was humble. He was modest. He didn't want the honor and attention that he would obviously get. People know he was studying with Elijah the prophet. So he kept a very low profile.
Nobody would believe him.
Well, I guess once he would start talking, they would believe him, maybe, right? So he didn't say anything. Eventually came the time for him to pass away. His pure soul, imagine this holy soul, comes before the heavenly court, the Beis Shalmayla, and guess what? Said, you're selfish. You didn't teach the world your secrets. You didn't teach them anything. And they decided he's going to have to come back to the world again to be reborn, but this time to also have the holy soul to know all of this tremendous secrets of the universe, but this time to teach it to the world. And this is what Adam Baal Shem told his student Yisrael, the future Baal Shem Tov, was the reincarnation of his soul.
We told him that he was a real.
Yes. He told him, this is a story of your soul that you have was this holy person that learned with Eliyahu Navi, that wouldn't give away his secret. And what he did, that was your soul. And now it came back to the world, not to be holy, but in a, I don't use the word selfish, but in a very, you could use selfish, in a secluded, environment where no one's able to benefit and gain from the greatness that you possess. Now, the Baal Shem Tov didn't want to reveal himself. It's a long story. The Baal Shem Tov didn't want to reveal himself. For many years, till he was 36, Achi Hashaloni, the teacher of the Baal Shem Tov, threatened the Baal Shem Tov. It's actually the same story. He told Achi Hashaloni, Achi Hashaloni was a teacher of King David. King David had a teacher called Achi Hashaloni. He would come back and he would teach, if he ever died, whatever. He used to teach the Baal Shem Tov. And he stopped revealing himself to the Baal Shem Tov, because he wouldn't reveal himself to the world. And eventually he realized that this was his mission, to go public and to share his greatness with the world.
But Rabbi, it shows like two characters here. One is very selfish, and the other one, they ask to come out.
Yeah, but when the Baal Shem Tov revealed himself to the world, the Baal Shem Tov revealed himself for no personal benefit. He had no interest whatsoever in becoming famous and becoming like the Rebbe, who just came from Yud Shvat. The exact same thing. The Rebbe was exactly the same way. The Rebbe did everything he could to maintain a low profile. He used to walk around with a little fedora, with a short hat, with a short jacket, and he would go on the train with a newspaper. He would sit with a newspaper on his face like this. Like people, the previous son-in-law sitting on the train with a newspaper, like proudly with the newspaper. So one day someone discovered that inside the newspaper was a copy of the Chassidus, the Maimon, the discourse that the previous Rebbe was giving out. So he sat on the train to study the Maimon. We didn't want people to see him studying the Maimer, and then they would come and ask him questions, and how do you understand? What do you think? So he would pretend like he was reading the newspaper, but inside the newspaper was the photocopies of the Hasidic discourse. That's how the Rebbe operated.
The Rebbe is a reincarnation of Baal Shem Tov.
Maybe I can't answer the question. But the point is, that was the Rebbe. When the Rebbe, after the previous Rebbe passed away, the Hasidim begged the Rebbe, please be our Rebbe, take leadership. We want to follow you. We want you to be our leader. And for a full year, the Rebbe refused. Not because he was trying to get more followers. His brother-in-law was actively trying to become the Rebbe. So from a strategic perspective, he was taking a big risk. The Rashad could have become the Rebbe, and he didn't want it. He had to be forced, into it, really be
So
the Rebbe. I'll say, so what finally convinced him? Okay. I can't tell you for a fact because I wasn't there and I wasn't in the Rebbe's mind, obviously. But one of the stories they say that made the Rebbe finally acquiesce or surrender, so to say, and agreed to become the Rebbe was his wife, Rebbe Chaya Moshka. Today is the Yerzeit of Rebbe Chaya Moshka, the wife of the Rebbe, who in many ways was the only true, real, not only, I'm saying a real chassid who is totally dedicated to the Rebbe. She would wait up when the Rebbe would have yechidus, when he would have private meetings till 2, 3 in the morning sometimes. She would wait up till he came home to be up home. She would come home like she was asleep. She would wait up for him to come home, have a cup of tea with him together, a hot cup of tea, whatever time in the middle of the night, in the morning he would come home. And she said to the Rebbe that if you're not going to continue the leadership of my father, then all of my father's work will be in vain. Be in vain. And the Rebbe couldn't hear someone say that his Rebbe would be in vain. Now, you have to think about it. You know, today's the year of the Rebbetzin. So the Rebbetzin had more to lose. Let's say this way. If you talk about the unpaid guardian, the paid guardian, the borrower, the ultimate of an unpaid guardian, if you want a physical living, is not living anymore, still living, but but of a person in our time, that was the ultimate selflessly dedicated person to the community, was a Rebbetzin. She gave away her husband to the community absolutely, unequivocally, and completely selflessly. Completely selflessly. What did she expect in return? Nothing. She refused any kind of honor. She wouldn't go to shul on Shabbos because she didn't want the honor. You know, if she were coming to the 770, everyone was for the front, sit here, the way he said, everyone would fuss over her. She didn't want the fuss. So she wouldn't go to the Farbrengen. She wouldn't go. She was eager to hear. She would ask people to give her a review of what happened. But for her to go to the Farbrengen, people would push and make space for her and then push to see her and want to talk to her. She didn't want any, she shunned honor. She disliked honor. She didn't want any publicity. She would go shopping herself privately. She wouldn't say her name. When people would find out who she is, she would stop going there. She didn't want any kind of recognition whatsoever. I mean, if she wanted, she could have lived in a beautiful house. We were in her house, right? You were in her house.
Yes.
A simple house. Majestic, regal, but simple. Simple.
Not ostentatious.
Not ostentatious. She could have lived in a fancy lifestyle. She could have had anything she wanted. She could have had anything she wanted. But to her, giving the Rebbe was a tremendous. When she encouraged her husband to become the leader of the, she knew what it meant. Her father was a Rebbe. She knew what it meant to be a Rebbe. She knew what the sacrifice is to care so deeply and feel the pain of your Hasidim and to live for them and care for them. She knew what that meant. When she was interviewed, she was deposed for the court case in 1985, regarding the library that had been stolen from Chabad, or the books from the library. Asked her point blank, who did the books belong to? Did they belong to your father, to the Hasidim? You know what she responded? My father. That's not what she said. She said it, but that's not what she said. She said, my father and the books all belong to Hasidim. Not that there's my father and there's a Hasidim and the books belong to the Hasidim. That was what the lawyers were thinking. She said, my father and the books all belong to the Hasidim. My father had no private life. He had no private identity. The identity of my father, he belonged to the Hasidim. That was the way the Rebbetzin looked at life. That was her perspective on life. And she was willing, in today's yard, and it's to me in her memory, that she was willing to give everything she had. Her husband, she didn't have children. Everything she had, she gave for Hasidim. Everything she had. That is the epitome of the young pig guardian. And so the lesson for us is to try every now and then, if not 24/7, but to do more and more acts. Just because this is the right thing to do, this is what God will want me to do, with no recognition, with no expectation, with no personal benefit, just to serve God for the sake of serving God. Okay, my friends, Laila Tov.